welcome to our live stream. It's a fandom thing. We are talking about something that Erin knows nothing about or knows very little about. I did some research, so I know a little bit, but it's not my realm. It's not my fandom, so I will be the moderator tonight. But we are going to be talking about the show Avatar: The Last Airbender. And as you can see, I have Susie, quote unquote, my cabbages. I do get that because I watched the Honest trailer because Jen, my podcast brain twin, said I had to watch that and one episode for sure. But I kind of went around and watched little clips and stuff. So I do sort of get that. So and then Tanya say that for me.
Flamio, hot man. Flamio.
Okay, thank
hot
you.
Man, hot man, Flamio.
Thank you. Okay, so before I have everybody, well, they've kind of already introduced themselves, but before they introduce themselves, of course, we are on Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and help us do live streams, help us do the show, help Erin figure out her green screen, click the link in the show notes or head on over to any of our social media and click our link tree there. And help us for as little as $3 a month. You'll get bonus content. I've mentioned before that we're probably going to edit it a little bit to include different kind of things. So that'll be a lot of fun. And next year, Susie is joining whether she wants to or not. We are revisiting every season of American Horror Story as special bonus episodes, except for we're only going to do the first half of season 10. And then the second half doesn't exist. So we are going to do that. But that'll be fun. So, Susie, you get to go first.
Oh my goodness, this is y'all.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a miracle. This is probably like the only time this will ever happen on this podcast ever.
Unless it's just you and me on an episode.
It's just you and me on one. Yeah. Other than that, I'm like, oh my goodness. I don't know if I can shoulder the weight of these responsibilities.
Well, what are you into?
Well, right now, other than kind of rewatching Avatar for this episode, I watched, like last week, I finished watching Dairy Girls, which is about a group of teenagers, mainly teenage girls, during I think it's the Irish Revolution during the 90s or 80s. Yeah, but it's really funny and they're really entertaining, and I definitely recommend like giving it a watch. It's just 2 seasons right now, so it's like really good. Like I think each one is like 8 or 6 episodes, so it's also like a really good like short kind of series to just watch if you ever have some downtime or anything.
Yeah, I think the other Erin recommended that on one of our What We Are Into episodes or something like that, or it could have been, I don't know. At some point, I believe she did. So I know that one's been recommended before. And Tanya, what are you into?
Hi, I'm into disco. Disco Inferno, but Star Trek disco. So yeah, not actual disco. Yeah. Star Trek Discovery. So this has been out for a few years, and I just started watching it a few weeks ago, and I'm almost to the end of season 1, and I like it. I don't like every Star Trek series that comes out, but so far I like this one. It's okay. I feel like they're kind of finding their thing, and then maybe next season will be a little more consistent. But when I saw this was their shirt, like their workout shirt, I was like, yes, we will purchase that. And that will be our shirt that we wear. Anyway, so disco for Discovery, not for the terrible music from the 70s, the cocaine inspired terrible music.
No, all of it was terrible.
And the bell bottoms were rocking.
No. But
I like a good bell bottom. They're fun.
Well, I hear bell bottoms are coming back. That's what I learned today, that bell bottoms are in now again. Is this true? Young Susie.
Listen, just because I'm young doesn't mean I'm in with the youths. I don't know what's going on.
So
There's
what
so many
I've
things
seen
happening.
what I've seen a lot of are like mom jeans and with like the rips and the high waist and then the big ass platform shoes like this that look like you're gonna break your ankle. But the mom jeans are cool if you're like not a mom. If you're a
Yeah.
mom with mom jeans, just look like you haven't changed your pants in 20 years.
Well, that could be possible.
Oh no,
Yeah.
froze.
Yeah. Yes, you did freeze, but we heard you. And this is Erin, and what I'm into is I love Spotify rap. I don't know why. I mean, I know it's cheesy, but I love it. And I love, here looking at what I've listened to. I also shared stats on the podcast. So if you want to know the stats on the podcast, go to our Instagram or Twitter. But I love Spotify Wrapped, and I love being able to see what I listen to that I don't remember that I listened to, or that, or that I didn't even realize I was listening to as much as it says I was listening to. But if anyone wants to know what my top 5 artists were, it should come as no surprise, any of these. But Depeche Mode was number 1. Number 2 was Lady Gaga. Number 3 was The. Number 4 was Violent Femmes. And number 5 was George Michael. So none of that should really come as a surprise, especially number 1, because as I said on our 80s music episode, Depeche Mode is my heart, my soul, my everything. So that should not shock anybody. But that's what I'm into. And just in case if anyone wants to play bingo, I forgot to check off if we've mentioned anything. We've all laughed, I'm assuming. Awesome is the free space, as it always is, because I say that way too much. But let's get into Avatar. And once again, as a reminder, I am not Avatar. I should say Avatar: The Last Airbender, because if I say Avatar, people are going to think we're talking about James Cameron's movie, and we're not going to talk about that ever on this podcast. Spoiler: never, ever will that be talked about. Ever, ever. Tanya agrees with me on that. That's good. So we're going to get into Avatar: The Last Airbender, and like I said, this is something that I'm going to be mainly just moderating. So I want to start first, and I'll just give a little bit of what this show is about. If you don't know what this show is about, like if you're like me and you're pretty new, and please jump in if there's anything that needs to be added. But this was a Nickelodeon show, ran for 3 seasons, from February 2005 to July 2008. Avatar is set in an Asiatic-inspired world in which certain people can telekinetically manipulate one of the 4 classical elements, water, earth, fire, or air, through practices known as bending. And it's inspired by Chinese martial arts. And I'm sure there's more to add to that, but that's kind of just a brief little description there. Was there anything I missed with that description, Susie or Tanya?
No, I think
No.
yeah, it's pretty Although I always hear 3 seasons,
Mhm.
and it always comes as a shock to me, even though I've watched this show over and over, because it just feels longer than 3.
Yeah. Well, and isn't there a movie or something too on Netflix?
Ooh, we don't talk about
sorry.
that.
I'm
We don't.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
I did read that. That was even, I watched the honest trailer, and even in the honest trailer,
Yeah.
it says, don't bring this up. So I apologize that I
Yeah. No, we should like briefly address it, but you need to say water, earth, fire, right? Like that. You have to say it with the pause. And anyway, no, you're fine.
Okay.
You're good. I'm teasing. I'm messing with you. Right.
I'm messing up already. So I want to,
No.
there's a lot of stuff to cover here. My wonderful panelists and my panelists that sadly weren't able to join, Carla and Judy, thank you, all 4 of you, for helping me come up with the outline here. I really, really appreciate it. It helped me a lot. So there's a lot we're going to cover. And since it's just the 2 of you, we might be able to get to everything, because I was like, this is so long, I don't know if we're going to get to everything. But we'll start with the parallels between Asian history and the nations, the quote unquote nations. So, Susie, do you have anything you want to talk about with that within the show?
Yeah, it's so, when you go into the world of The Last Airbender, I think we can also shorten it to that, or just sometimes it's shortened to Atla. which is
Okay,
how
Atla.
we can go by that maybe to like short sentences.
Thank you. That's good
But,
to know.
yeah.
That's good to know.
But in the world of Atla, it is interesting to see. Like the first time when I watched this, I didn't really take into account the parallels that it did have with Asian history, but upon rewatches and when I would go out and kind of like seek more information for my own and some stuff that I even didn't know beforehand, you do see like just the history of conquering and colonization. And something that I think is that the show does very interestingly is oftentimes in history when we hear about like all these different conquests and colonization is that you most often hear about it from the point of the victor, and you just kind of hear kind of like a third person, very detached account.
Mhm.
Something that I think the show does really well is that in the adventures that the gang has, they go to different towns and they meet different people and they get to know the experiences of each. Like for example, they go to an earth, like in one of the episodes they go to an earth village where they learn that every earthbender has been captured and put to work because they're not allowed to bend unless it is to the benefit of the Fire Nation. And and then the gang goes on a whole adventure to kind of uplift the people on the prison barge and tell them like, hey, you guys were given these powers and you can use them for good and you can use them for way beyond what they're telling you to use it for. This is for you to take charge of, and like no one can tell you what to do with it. And they uplift them and help free them and kind of help them kind of see and recognize that power inside. And we don't just see like our quote unquote main protagonist interact with different people from different walks of different life. Like Zuko, who for kind of a good half of the series is, or third, two thirds, for a good kind of like portion of the series, he's, I would kind of consider him mostly like a misguided antagonist. And there's a point where he gets separated from his uncle and he's just kind of like going off on his own, and he's no longer like living under the title of Prince Zuko, and he's just Zuko. And he goes to a farm where he meets this family, and they kind of take him in and they don't know who he is yet. And he learns about them and he learns how the Fire Nation moving into their town and has affected their family and how it affected everyone in the town. And then he starts to learn more about how different the world is and what he thought it was. And he even grows to like care for these people, and he has, at a certain point he has to leave them, but he tries his best to do what he can in a way that he can, I don't know if I'm verbalizing this right. He doesn't go about things the right way, but he has good intentions in trying to help this family. And when he leaves, the the family that he's staying with, one of the kids is like, I know who you are and I need you to leave because I can't have you here. Like your people destroyed my town and destroyed my family, and I don't want you here anymore, and I know what you've done. And just before he leaves, he's like, yeah, I get it, and I'm sorry. And he leaves them like his knife is like, you're the man of the house. This is for you to defend your family and yourself and your people. And he just like moves on this journey, and you get to see like different facets instead of just kind of like hearing the third person account. Like you know what's going on behind the scenes with the the conquerors and the conquerees, if that kind of makes any sense. You kind of learn more about each throughout the whole series, and I think that's something that the show does really well. And they do do a really great job of fleshing out the characters and really bringing you into the story and making you interested and in a different way care for each one of them.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah, and feel free, people who watch, to make comments, or just who are watching, just to let us know your thoughts as well. And then Tanya, do you have anything to add on to that? Tanya, I think Tanya froze.
Let me tell you, folks,
Uh-oh, we may have lost Tanya.
oh no! Wait,
Yeah, I'm
Wait,
freezing.
now she's back. Now she's back.
That's
She's back
fun.
now. You're back now. You're back, Tanya.
Am I back? I'm back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm
Yes.
trying. I closed everything. I'm trying. Like, I don't know what work, computer. Yeah, so I'll try, and you stop me or interrupt me or message me if it's not working. Real fast. So I came to this as an adult. I am old, and my kids were watching it. I knew it was good, but I didn't watch it myself until a couple of years ago, like fully all the way through. But I saw the parallels right away between the Air Nation is kind of like Tibetan monks, a little bit inspired by Tibet and India and kind of warrior monks. The northern and southern water tribes are inspired by the Inuit and some Native American peoples, as well as some other indigenous peoples around the world. The Earth Kingdom is a lot like China, some of Japan. Of course, that's a very diverse history. Then the Fire Nation, I think, most closely resembles Japan, and a lot of the setting for the show with the Fire Nation kind of invading is based on historical event called the Nanjing Massacre, which is a terrible genocidal invasion of Japan to China. Like, so, and there was a war like that kind of precipitated prior to World War II. So it's not a direct correlation, but it definitely references that, I think. And what I love about the way they show this is a kids show. We gotta like kind of mention that. So we're not seeing like the full horrors of war, but the fact that they can work that in and kind of reference that history, and also add, as Susie was saying, these cultures are not a monolith. So because we're following Team Avatar, or the gang, as they're referred to, I said it that way on purpose. There's an extra A. Okay. As we're following them around and meeting people affected in the different nations, they do a good job of showing none of these are monoliths. So there are the Fire Nation people are also oppressed by their leadership, right? The Earth Kingdom is not perfect. They have issues, right? There's class divisions and other kinds of divisions. The northern and southern water tribes have various diasporas, if you will, and like are trying to, and they have their own kind of, there's like a gender commentary where the northern tribe has gender imbalance rather than the southern tribe. So it's just really wonderfully layered, I think, especially for something like a kids show. And they can show the unity of culture, but also the diversity within cultures and between cultures, while referencing history and being really funny and clever and telling kind of moral stories without beating you over the head with it.
See, that's what was so interesting to me, because someone who's so new to this, I know when it came out on Netflix, when they like, I don't remember how, that wasn't that long ago, but when they re-released the show on Netflix, I know it found like a whole new following and a whole new fandom, and it became this thing that every single person I knew pretty much was talking about it. And I was like, oh, then this must not be a kids show. I honestly did not think it was a kids show because of how many people were talking about it and the way they were talking about it. And then when I watched some, I went, oh my gosh, this is such a kids show. So that's what's so striking to me is, and I'm not saying like people, like adults don't watch kids cartoons. It just was striking to me that every single person I talked to would very rarely mention like watching it with their kids. I know you said that your kids watched it, Tanya, but so that is, to me, is, I know this isn't on the outline, but that's just so interesting to me that it appeals to so many adults, I think, on a very, very high level. Like Tanya shared, and I retweeted it on our Twitter account, because you are at a convention right now, and you tweeted out some cosplay, some Avatar cosplay, with some adults dressed up in that. So I don't know, Susie, do you think there's a reason why this is like seems to appeal so much to adults?
Well, personally, when I started watching the show, I was a lot younger. I was
Yeah.
in my teens. So, but from what I can say is that I think it's the relatability of the characters that has such an impact, because some of us know a Katara, some of us know an Aang, some of us for sure know a Zuko or have been a Zuko, or some of us know like a Toph. So it's just how I think part of its importance or relevance is there's I mean, it's such a diverse cast of characters, and like you could pretty much like throw a penny and like it's most likely guaranteed that you'll find a character that you can relate to. And I think it also has to do with like the message of the show, of how, because like even the Avatar team is built up of people from different nations
Mhm.
who all come together, and that can kind of speak to almost kind of like a personal want of like of things that we do, like finding, like when we go to conventions, that we find people that we want to like get together with and experience things with and talk about things with. I mean, I know we're not going to mention it, but I also know that, like, we're not going to talk about it a lot, but I do want to give just a really brief shout out to The Legend of Korra, which is like the Avatar sequel series. And that also has a lot of relevance for people, because it also features a very important queer relationship between the female Avatar and another female, like a bi relationship, queer relationship. And it's not like other fandoms where we've been sort of brainwashed to say to be told like, oh no, it's not, they're just friends. History would say they were roommates. Like, no.
Special friends,
Yeah.
we take a bath together, just like you do with your friends.
Yeah, it's not queer baiting, is what you're saying.
Mhm.
Like they're not queer baiting
No,
here.
absolutely. No, they
Yeah,
don't.
no,
No, I was
no,
being,
no,
I
yeah,
was,
No,
yeah,
no, I'm
no,
just
no,
saying
no,
no, they're
yeah,
good.
that's what
Mhm,
you're saying, Cece, is they don't do that.
yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
I just think it's because the show also has like a very positive message, because also part of like it's just it tickles the brain. It's like in a really good way. is how I can
Yeah.
probably like best surmise why like it can also appeal to adults. And the thing also with children's media is that oftentimes children's media is talking down to kids.
Mhm.
And Avatar is one of the very few shows where they see their audience as an equal, and where they're like, we're going to put this out there for you to know, and we know you're going to get it. We don't have to hold your hand and coddle you through it.
Mhm.
Like, we can present you with these like complex topics and these kind of not often talked about things, and you can still understand it and go along with it. And I think that's also a really big part of its appeal as well.
Yeah. And do you agree with all that, Tanya?
Definitely. I think it's important to note too with the timing of this series. So I said I noticed my kids watching it. I knew that they loved it. And then I sat down and I think it came to some kind of streaming platform we had and rewatched it with one of my kids. And then that was my first time like intentionally watching it. But I think it does definitely appeal to the broad audiences for the reasons that Susie identified, in the same way that Pixar films and some comic films or adaptations like that, or Harry Potter, or even Lord of the Rings, there's a lot of stereotyping of sci-fi and fantasy in general as being for children. And I think it's really impressive when a product like this can be a completely new, although referential world, and appeal to both kids and adults. But again, back to the timing of when this came out, I'm guessing the folks that I shared a photo of and folks that are now adults maybe grew up with this show or watched it as young people. And so I think this is in the same way that Harry Potter is really important for millennial and Gen Z folks. I'm thinking this is younger millennial, Gen Z sort of touchstone. Like for my generation, that would have been like Star Wars, He-Man, not the intellectual equivalent, if you will, of this show, but in terms of the pop culture,
He-Man wasn't
I
the
love
intellectual equivalent.
I love me some He-Man, but no, it was not the brainiest. Although the new one's pretty interesting. Okay, yeah, I have to go back. Okay,
Yeah,
but we digress. So yeah, I love that. I love that it's smart, and it, as you said, Susie, it doesn't talk down, and it doesn't it presents things. It's not always nothing. Okay, how do I put this? It's complicated, not complicated. It's complex. It's layered, so things are not always resolved. Like you may not see overt death, but like really freaky things happen to characters, or there's consequences, and good characters do bad things, and bad characters do good things, morally bad, morally good. And there's only really a couple of truly evil or truly morally corrupt. So those shades of gray in a media for kids, I think is really interesting. Like how is it that people end up being influenced by their environment? And that's the Zuko character. You really see him. He needs to get out of the shadow of his father, his abusive father, and be able to kind of have that experience to be able to become a more redeemable character. We were supposed to get a fourth series of this, an animated fourth series, and it was going to be Azula's redemption arc. I don't know if you've heard that, Susie, but this is my main Avatar expert in my house is one of my kids, and so a lot of my trivia is from that. But that's what he told me.
Yeah, I did not know that. I only knew about some of the like spin-off like comics that were done after the show had ended. Like continuations of certain stories, but I had not heard that the fourth season would be Azula's redemption. That's actually really interesting.
So I know they give powers on the show, but only to a portion of the population on the show, correct? So Susie, do you what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you like that, or what do you think that's trying to say, this giving powers to a certain portion of the population?
I think it's interesting. Because you're just kind of presented this world, and you're not really kind of in a way given a reason why, because like one of the two of the first characters you meet are from the same family, and one of them has powers. Katara, she has water bending powers, but her brother doesn't. And as the gang, as when she and her meet Aang, and as their kind of friend group grows, they bring in Zuko, who's a firebender. They bring in Toph, who's an earthbender, and Aang is an airbender. And in a way, Sokka is kind of like the odd man out. But it is interesting to see how he approaches situations differently to his bending buddies. Because to them, like if they come across a threat, for them it can be considered a lot easier to neutralize said threat because they can use their bending prowess. Whereas oh god. Sorry, like I completely blanked on his name. Whereas Sokka, see, this is one of, I'm just going to mention this really quick. This is one of the cursed things about the Shyamalan movie, is that he forever messed up the pronunciation of of the characters' names in my head, because then I have to sort through like all these mental like images to make sure that I'm saying it right. And if I say I'm just going to put this out there. If I say characters' name wrongs, I am so sorry. That is on me and M. Night. Blame us both. Aaron, you're muted.
Aaron, you're muted. Mhm.
That's right, because I was typing. Yep. Yes. So blame M. Night for everything,
Yeah,
not
that's
yourself.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's
I don't like M. Night.
like
So
yeah, it's yeah,
well,
no.
it's this movie, M. Night, the adaptation of this in particular was egregious. And the reason, and I'll just, can I just bitch about that for a minute?
Oh,
sure,
So,
go
yeah,
ahead.
like
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So the issue with it is took this beloved, product and recast the characters with white actors. That's one of the very great, the amazing things about this show is there's really very few or no white, canonically white characters in it. There are lighter skin and darker skin characters, but there are not really Eurocentric sort of
Yeah.
white folks, which is great. So why the hell would you cast this film with white people and then change the pronunciation of the names, the main characters, right? Took all the humor out. It's just it's terrible. And fans were so frustrated that they actually organized a pushback against it, like against the whitewashing. So in addition to it's just not a good movie, but like there's like those level issues as well.
Yeah, no, it also fell into the like very age old like kind of trope where the lighter skinned characters were the protagonist and the whole of the Fire Nation, most everyone was darker skinned. As like that's such just so lazy. Like, oh my god. I can't no. It's some nonsense. But I do want to apologize that if I mispronounce the names of characters. I am so sorry. That's on me.
Well, I mean, it's gonna. I mean, it. I mispronounce things all the time
Yeah.
on here, so it's. I mean, especially if it was once pronounced one way, and then it got changed, and
And then
then
it gets changed. Why did they change it?
Yeah.
because it's M. Night Shyamalan. I mean, I didn't
It
see
was
the movie, so
no, it was just really and I think maybe that's why I didn't watch the animated series for a long time because I remember the kids watching the M. Night Shyamalan one and kind of catching a few minutes of it and like, "Oh, this is terrible." But you know how kids just like terrible shit sometimes and you're like, "All right, fine,
yeah.
but you're behaving yourself. Go ahead and watch Slug Terra or, whatever." Which is okay, I have children, right? And you're like, or Doc McStuffins, which I think is actually good. I don't know, but we're Teletubbies, we're just like, fine, do it. Let me get 5 minutes of something done, or just peace and quiet. So that might have been why, and I had no idea that this was such a rich, amazing show. Like before that, and wow, yeah. Mhm. So okay, and that's enough of
Okay,
that.
cool.
Yeah.
I'm
Sorry.
like, that's a lot more talking about the movie than I thought.
Yeah.
Palette cleanser.
I am curious though, as far as like, because I looked at some of the cast for the voice actors, and it seemed somewhat diverse, but I did notice some white actors in there. So I'm wondering, because we talked about that on BoJack Horseman about, not about having a white actor voice the character of a person of color, and so is that the case then in this one then too? Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part I think it is, and I don't make excuses for that. I think it is different, and we do need to recognize this was made in the early 2000s. By the time the film adaptation came out, though, really we did that standard and that accountability was different. And then for BoJack, when that came out, like that conversation has been happening. Like, and it is tough because it is not perfect. Like there are some voice actors of color and some of the historically marginalized groups and things like that, but it's not a perfect representation. The one thing I think you could say in defense of that is that it is a fictional world. I'm not making that claim, but it is a fictional world, so we don't we don't necessarily, you know, it's not as though we are taking like Diane Nguyen, right, who is
Mhm.
Vietnamese American, who is canonically Vietnamese American in BoJack, voiced by a white actress, right?
Mhm.
I do think there is something to be said for that being a little bit different than a fictional character from a fictional group of people voiced by someone of a different perceived race, but I think that is a very kind of uncomfy area for me, and frankly, I think at this point we need to have diversity and we need to just, not
Yeah.
do even the questionable gray area. But does that make sense, like that distinction? I'm absolutely not trying to justify it or
No,
excuse it.
I
I
know
do
what you
think it's a
yeah,
No,
little.
yeah.
yeah. I was just curious just because, looking at the cast, I was just curious about that. So, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about destiny versus free will, which is a theme in a lot of things I think we've talked about, or it's also a theme in supernatural. That maybe that's what I'm thinking. But how does that play a role in this, Susie?
Yeah. It's it plays such a big role, especially when it comes to the Avatar. Because like throughout the whole series, ever since like Aang comes out of kind of like the iceberg as of because he was kind of in hibernation for almost like 100 years. So when he kind of emerges from his ice cocoon, he comes to a world. He comes face to face with a world that has been taken over entirely by the Fire Nation. People that he knows and loves have been like conquered and dead and gone. And okay, so one of the special attributes of the Avatar is that they can go into meditative state, and in that meditative state they can talk to their past lives or past selves. And when he when he goes to talk to some of his past selves, they tell him, "Oh, so I had a big threat in my day. It was this person who was also who wanted to be a conqueror, or this person who was a warlord, and I just killed them, and I took care of I neutralized the threat. I got rid of them." And part of Aang's thing is that since he grew up as I think he's an orphan that was raised by the air nomads, and the air nomads, what their whole thing that they preach is peace and do no harm upon others, because that's not it's in very in touch with kind of like the Buddhist philosophy, like do no harm. And something that Aang struggles with throughout the entirety of the series is that everyone around him, all his past lives, they're all telling him, you need to get rid of the Fire Lord. And in a way, Aang interprets this as, I gotta kill him, but I don't want to kill him because that doesn't sit right with me and with my beliefs that I was raised in and that I like uphold. I can't do that. And he keeps asking his different past selves, and he even meets other spirits that he's able to contact, and it all kind of comes other people, and it all kind of comes down to the same thing, like you got to kill him. And then it comes to a point where he kind of believes that's what his destiny is, that like, okay, well, I have to kill this man even though I really don't want to, but I have to do it for the good of everyone in all these different nations. And then like finally the climax of the series is that he finds a way to do it without killing him. He simply like kind of like mojos him and takes away the Fire Lord Ozai's firebending, and he like neutralizes him without ever without without having to kill him. And then he's just kind of imprisoned, and that's kind of like one of the big things for Aang is like he believes it's his destiny, but in the end, and he also like throughout the series he also struggles like I really don't want to, and then he is able to find a way to still get rid of the threat and still like uphold his beliefs. And that's one of like the biggest things, and can kind of goes against like what everyone else has been telling him, but he's like, I stay true to myself, and I'm still able to help everyone around me. And I think that that's something really good. And it also kind of, like, on the flip side, Zuko, he kind of grows up, like, for most of his, like, teenage years, thinking, I need to regain my honor by capturing the Avatar and handing him over to my father. And for most of his journey, his uncle is there with him, and his uncle is one of the, like, most positive role models in his life, who just deserves all the nice things. Tells him, like, hey, you realize you've been exiled by your own father, so you don't really need to kind of pursue this and keep doing this. You're free to do your own thing. You know that, right? And most of the time Zuko is very dismissive of him, but his uncle is very like, I'm here for you and I love you and I want you to know that there are other things that you can do. And he does have that supportive network, but Zuko himself realizes that, okay, so I'm the one who can make the changes that I want to make, and I can be in control of my own destiny. And he, along the way, finds the honor that he thought he needed to seek by capturing the Avatar, and instead he became his friend and helped him on Aang's own journey. And it's all just very, like I said, it's very well done.
And I'll just tell you, Susie, I put a little message in there, but if you can move your microphone out from your hair rubbing on your microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Crazy.
No.
So yeah. Thank you. There.
Sorry, my bad.
That's okay. I mean, it's not like it wasn't horrible, but I was like, I'll just go ahead and tell her since she didn't see the messages. But yeah. Okay. So Tanya, do you have anything to add to that with the destiny versus free will or any?
I think, yeah, it's really interesting. It is a recurrent theme throughout. I love that Aang ends up solving the problem that way. Like you mentioned, I really thought that was amazing. Aang is a vegetarian. Aang is peaceful, and one of his, to become an airbender, you have to invent like a bending kata. I don't know what they'd call it, but like you have to invent something. And Aang's he's a kid. Like, so he invents this ball that he sits on, this ball of air that he sits on and like floats around on. And he's just, I don't know, he's such a cool character. And to see that sort of maintained. Also, I wanted to mention, I know this is a little bit back a couple topics, but in this show, I think so many adults love it and so many of us nerds love it because it has that theme of found family and created kinship that's common in a lot of sci-fi and fantasy shows, where Aang is the last one of his people. And he has to deal with all of that pressure in addition to the whole, you are this reincarnated, extremely powerful being that is supposed to protect the world. I mean, my God, no wonder he runs away, and this is how he gets frozen. And I don't blame him, So it's like he ends up, though, with the support of his new family, like his created family, friendship family, he ends up finding the strength and the wisdom to be able to solve that problem on his terms, like Susie described. Zuko is interesting. Zuko and his honor, every time he's like, my honor, I roll my eyes. Like, I mean, I know, but it's a very like teenaged boy sort of, I hate to be stereotypical, but it's kind of like, oh my gosh, just listen, yeah, drama prince, like calm down. But he is very motivated. He's traumatized and he's trying to figure out his place in the world, and he's had, really bad socialization. Iroh is a little bit like Bobby Singer, but a very jolly version of goofy, funny version kind of, but still a badass. And Zuko's a little bit like emo Dean or something, maybe, if you want to go that way. And Ozai's a little bit like bad fanfic John A+ Winchester, like in the fanfic version where John's very abusive. Like, not to but like there's some of those parallels there, and I think that's why you see this kind of over and over. And Iroh, you kind of learn later, ends up, he loses a son. It's really, really sad. He loses a son in the war, and then he ends up kind of staying involved at all in the Fire Nation to protect Zuko, like to try to. And is he, Susie? Do you remember if Iroh and Ozai are brothers, or if
Yeah,
it's if
they're brothers. Like I think
okay?
he is his uncle because like all the time I think everyone around
Mhm.
refers to him as like the lazy brother, the less
And he,
successful
yeah,
one of the two.
but it's more just he's not awful and corrupted by
Yeah.
power. But Ozai, okay, I couldn't remember if Iroh was biologically sibling of Zuko and Azula's mom, or and they never tell you what happens to the mom.
Oh, that's actually explored in one of the comic series after the
Okay,
fact of
Oh, so
the
okay.
there's a comic too?
yeah, because also
How many
part of
things are spun off of this? No, I'm just curious because I mean, I should have done more research on that, but how many things are spun off of this?
I know there's the sequel TV series which takes place with like the next Avatar after Aang, and I know there was a comic series about Zuko and the gang figuring out what happened to his mom.
Okay,
And
I didn't catch that one. Yeah.
yeah, and I think
Okay.
there may also
Okay.
be some bits in there about Azula as well and her like a little bit of her rehabilitation, which is like a little bit, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And then there's also the what will become the new live action Netflix
Mhm,
series. There's also
mhm.
that.
And
Okay.
I heard there's going to be another animated season, but I don't know if that's true or a rumor. But yeah, so there's, and Korra is about 40 years after the events of Avatar. So that's, you'll probably need another episode for Korra. So Aang is, because the Avatar is sort of like the Buffy Slayer mythology, where it's only one at a
Okay.
time. And yeah, so somebody has to
Okay.
die for the next Avatar to happen, right, Susie? I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
Okay.
so what happens is the avatar dies and
Mhm.
then the next avatar will have like the next set of like their main power almost will be the next kind of like in the line of succession. So Aang is a airbender primarily. That's what he has first like kind of mastery of. Before him, the avatar before him was born in the Fire Nation and he had mastery over fire. And then the avatar after yeah, after Aang is Korra, who was born to I forget which water tribe. I think it was South or North or South.
I don't
Was it South?
remember either.
Well, she was
Yeah.
born to one of the water tribes, and her
Mhm.
main domain is water. Like her
But
main
then they
mastery
have to
is water,
learn.
and then they have to
Yeah.
learn all the others to be like a fully rounded, powered up avatar. Kind of.
So this is reminding me of the GIF with like the different, the red from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's putting together the
Oh,
like different red and
Yeah.
trying to figure it
Charlie
out.
Day.
right.
Yes, when he's got the yes, or like me when I'm trying to figure out my various conspiracy theories. So that's
Mhm.
I don't know
That's
why that just
That's how I
reminds
feel. Hey, I'm glad, because I'm glad we gave you the Charlie Day from Philly GIF feeling, because that's how I feel when y'all are talking about American Horror Story, and I'm just like, no, thank you.
It's
Do
like,
not want.
oh my
Like,
goodness.
no,
that's
you're
the way
good.
I
I'm
feel when I'm
teasing.
talking about American Horror Stories. So
It's just because that's not my, as you know, horror, not my
yes.
Yeah.
jam.
If you really want to give someone that feeling, and this is gonna sound kind of mean, but like it, find someone who hasn't seen Once Upon a Time
Mm.
and
Oh
I've only seen
God.
part of it.
explain that to them, and all the
Yeah.
Okay,
different
then you could explain that to me
explain
sometimes.
explain that to them and all the different relationships inside of it to them too, because it's like, okay, so she's her grandmother but she's also his mother, but she's also dating his son, and this and then she had their kid, and then the kid is their grandfather, almost grandkid, uncle. It's the whole like
It's
Everybody's
like
the
a
same
soap.
age except for Henry, and he kinda sucks, and it's, yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know. I'm sorry. I only watched like 3 seasons, but then I was like, I'm very, very confused, but it's like this really weird PG Disney incestuous soap opera.
That's what
Yeah.
that's what it sounds. And even when
Practically.
you're describing Atla, is that what you said I can call it, right?
Yeah.
Atla? Even when you're describing that, it almost, I mean, it doesn't sound like a soap necessarily, but just like, you know, how many different connections there are, or different worlds, or different um iterations, or different spin-offs, or different, not spin-offs, I guess isn't the right word, but different things that have come off of it, and offshoots of it, and different worlds. And now, of course, with the live action thing, which we won't really get into because I know a lot of people are very upset about that, but all of that stuff. So sounds like it's just, I mean, that's why I was thinking, that's why I was picturing that. I'm like, put that up there, create a spreadsheet, and put all of those. But it's but I think that's true of like any show you watch that's on for years and years, is there's all these connections, and if people don't watch it and then you're explaining it, it does sound like that, because you don't even realize how complex a world it is. And I know this was only on for 3 seasons, but still, you don't realize how complex of a world it is until you start describing it to someone else, I think. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think a lot of shows are like that. So, yeah. Well, we kind of touched on representation a tad, teeny bit, but I want to talk about that a little bit more, and how the show handles representation, Susie.
Well, yeah, I think. Well, the show does a really good job of representing people from different walks of life, and also different kind of socioeconomic levels of life as well, and how they all kind of interact with each other, and how again they all deal with different things differently. And it's one of I think that the show does amazingly is its representation of women. Like most notably Katara's character. Um, so notably for Katara, she wants to learn how to waterbend. She doesn't really know how, and especially at the beginning of the series. And so when she goes to the Northern Water Tribe, she wants to learn how to waterbend and waterbend well. But they tell her, like, you can't do this. You can't learn this. This is more of like a masculine trait. You can learn the more feminine trait, which is water healing. And she's like, but why? I can be just as good as like any of your students if you just give me a shot. And they're like, no, we don't allow women to learn this here. You can learn water healing. That's about it. Go do that. And she's like, oh, fine. And so she goes, but then she like proves herself and into this to the okay, so her teacher, this is another like web moment. So so her teacher, the man who ends up being her waterbending teacher, he dated her grandma and got real salty when her grandma left him for her grandpa. And so he kind of takes it out on her a little bit. Just
See, it's like a soap opera to me.
Yeah. Precisely. He's just a real salty old man. But like, he does end up teaching her, and she does become a really good waterbender to kind of when as they continue their journey, she's the one that teaches Aang waterbending and helps him get better at waterbending. She's kind of like she's his waterbending master, which is kind of what that's kind of like part of what that's kind of like the main focus of their journey is to find him different bending masters that will teach him how to bend, how to gain mastery of that specific area of bending so that he can then defeat the Fire Lord. But she is one of the people that becomes his bending teachers. And another one who is also his bending teacher is Toph, who has a really great mastery of earth bending. She is so for most earthbenders, so Toph is blind, so her method of earthbending is 100% unique than every other earthbender, because since she is blind, what she does is that she mostly uses, I think, from what I understand, she uses the vibrations of the earth and the world around her to kind of get an idea of kind of like how to best bend, and that kind of goes into her teachings with Aang. And and she even invents a new form of bending, which is metal bending, which no one had ever done before, and she just comes straight out the gate with this. Like, immediately good at it, and you're just like, oh my god, you're a little bit OP, but let's but like, something the show does really well is that all the female characters are written really well and really strong. I mean, to her, like, even though Azula is a villain, is one of the villains, to her credit, she is a very strong and very awful awful character, but she does, like, one of her main points is that she knows she's better than everyone, but she doesn't ever let, like, when she walks in her room, she has complete power. That's kind of like her deal. And she kind of surrounds herself with people that are very similar to her. Like, one of her best friends is what one would consider like a very girly girl, but again, she's also very strong and very capable, and that's part of why she's so good. I think her name is Ty Lee. Is it am I right? Tanya? Yeah. Ty Lee.
I don't remember. I was just trying to remember Azula's like mean girl gang. And they end
Yeah.
up being cool, but like it's like May is the one who
She's
Zuko's girlfriend, and then there's another one, and then I think it's Tylee, and I
yeah.
don't remember the third one.
Okay. Yeah, Ty Lee is the gymnast, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So one of her friends is this very like girly gymnast, and part of what kind of makes her attack prowess work the way that it does is that since she comes across as like very girly and kind of unassuming, people kind of let their guards down around her, and then she comes out the gate like with the chi blocking situation, like and completely disarms her foes without like ever kind of landing a single punch, because she kind of like pokes you
It's
and
like
like
Xena. Yeah.
yeah, and just yeah.
I've just cut off the flow of blood to your brain. Yeah, anyway, it's a very Xena, like,
Yeah, it's
points
kind
thing.
of what she does, because she, like, in a way, she kind of like numbs you, so you don't, so you aren't able to use any powers against her, and that's also like a part of really good representation of the people with powers and people who don't. Like, she found a way to get around it. She uses chi blocking, which I don't know where she learned it, or if she's found it out for herself. Do we ever know where she learned it, or if
I
it was
don't. I
just something
feel
she
like they.
knew?
Well, her family was like gymnasts, right, in the circus or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
They
Well,
something like that. It's sort of a Robin from Batman kind of a vibe. But yeah, just to not to jump in, but just one thing what you were making me think about is the non-benders can still be martial artists. Non-benders can still do, have expertise at things. So in terms of like bending is just sort of a special ability. Like if you're a
yeah.
great, it just
Kinda like
happens to be.
It's kind of
You
like
still have
that
to
Mario
practice.
mushroom.
Yep.
It's that one up in Mario.
You still have to practice
character.
though.
Yeah.
Like you can't, like everybody maybe has some little inherent, like singers, like some people are just born better at singing, but they still have to learn. They're still, and so I think that's kind of a good metaphor for kids. Like Aang, even though he's kick ass, he's got to like get up to speed. Anyway,
Yeah,
didn't mean
because
to
he
jump in.
thinks, oh, no, but you're completely right. Like
No.
he thinks, oh, I'm kind of good at this. I'm just like, one of the things that he goes through with having Katara as his teacher is that he thinks, oh, I'm the Avatar, so I'm obviously going to be the best at this. And it would be better than everyone. And then just Katara comes in and goes, excuse me, I'm the master here. You'll be learning from me, sir. Thank you.
And in martial arts, from what I understand, like the idea of kung fu or martial arts are not only about fighting. They're considered disciplinary practices. So it's not that outside of the realm of philosophy that things like arts, that things like healing would be sort of the other end of that spectrum. Those things are not considered polar opposites from what I understand of some Eastern philosophies about martial arts. They're not the way that we in the US, like a Eurocentric perspective, might consider them to be opposite sides of behavior. It's more like, no, this is a discipline. And so similarly for Ty Lee, and that is her name, I looked it up. Like where it's that being an acrobat is a form of combat. But I don't know whether I should jump in on representation or not.
You can, yeah, you can go ahead.
Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
okay?
add into, yeah, that's perfectly fine.
I think the
Yeah,
disability
yeah.
representation is really interesting. So Toph being blind, we talked about this yesterday at the panel here, that one thing that's challenging is often when disabled characters are portrayed, it's in media like this, they sort of have this superpower almost to overcome their disability, or it's like they have to be, just like Professor X is this amazing mutant, right? And so he's a wheelchair user, but it's like he has to be portrayed that way. And Toph, I don't know, we talked about that because she's a little bit OP with her earth bending and inventing metal bending, but I also think her representation as a female character is really, really cool because she she's from a wealthy family. Her family treats her like a porcelain doll because of her disability too. They're very afraid of or her impairment, I should say. They're afraid of things happening to her, and so she's not allowed to sort of have a full life, and that's like the totalizing or infantilizing effect of disability that people experience, right? So I think that's really important, and Toph is like, no, I need to be who I am. She's kick ass, right, at bending. She can take care of herself, and she's not this super feminine character. And she's not she's as far as we know, she's attracted to men or boys, but she's also kind of tomboyish or sort of not traditionally feminine. And I think that's great because they, like as Susie was saying, all the female characters are complicated. Like they show different portrayals of what it means to be a girl or a woman and what it means to be a man, different kinds of masculinities, different kinds of feminities. I think that's really great. The other one, there is a character who uses a wheelchair. Do you remember? I don't remember his name. Do you, Susie?
I think it's Tio.
Okay. Yeah. But they're in, it's part of the Earth Kingdom, right? And they're living way up in the sky. And so his dad is this amazing engineer.
Yeah, he and his dad are living at one of the abandoned air temples, and Aang sees them flying around, and he thinks that's why there's more airbenders, is because he sees them kind of moving through the sky, and he's like, "Oh, I got more people!" And then it's to not be. So
that is what it's. It's. I think I was looking it up. It does seem like that is who that is. Is who you were mentioning, right? You said Tio. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Sounds right. Yeah. And so that's really cool because that character and his dad, though, that technology, you see that carried forward in the show and then into Korra, like the technology that was engineered to be inclusive, like of the of his son being able to participate. And even we didn't even talk about the Kyoshi warriors, right? And Sokka putting on the makeup.
Yeah. Well, I think what's important whenever you show anybody who has a disability or who is a wheelchair user or who and anything like that is that too often, like you said, they're either going to be given like some magical like power. It's the same thing when you see somebody with Down syndrome or something like that. Is that's like they're given like they're either treated like a porcelain doll or treated like they're not actually a human being, like not fleshed out, not given like, a life outside of, everything is about because because they're in a wheelchair, because they have any disability that they have, or because they're not quote unquote like what you would normally see on media, quote unquote. I'm not saying they're not normal. I'm just saying what you would normally see portrayed. Like they're not given, they're not fleshed out to be fully dimensional characters that have a life outside of that. They're like, just that's the thing is, oh, you're blind, oh, you're deaf, oh, you're a wheelchair user, oh, you have Down syndrome, and that's all you are. And so I think it's important for people to be fully realized that are in any community. Everyone deserves to see themselves, like I say 100 billion times. And so I think that's the same thing, is everyone deserves to see themselves as a fully fleshed out character and a fully fleshed out human being. And so it sounds like from what you're describing, they try to do that, at least on this show, which is still is still something you don't see that often. And I know this was from over a decade ago. And so it is pretty incredible that they were at least trying to do that. So, I mean, I don't know if that made sense, but so it just seems like that's a pretty good thing that they're trying to do, at least. So, or we're trying to do. I don't know what the live action thing or all the other ones did, but at least for this show, it seems like they Susie made a face. So I'm guessing that means not very good, but
Sorry. No. The movie was no. But in the Legend of Korra, they did, like, even Korra herself goes through a time where she is like disabilitated and kind of wheelchair bound for a while, and she does learn.
and you do want to say wheelchair user, Susie. You do want to say wheelchair user, just to let you know. Yeah.
Apologies. Where she is a user, and she does kind of, there is like an arc of her storyline where she does learn that she's not less than because she is a wheelchair user.
Yeah, she struggles with a lot of, that's really interesting. Korra's impairment, because she struggles, a lot of what's disabling for Korra is the internalized ableism, not even what's physically going on with her, but she thinks she's not, it's her own, she's stigmatizing herself. Like, yeah, you get it. Like, it's her own problems with her physical status that are most disabling of her. Aang also goes through injury that is physical, but also has a mental component, and he has like PTSD, and he has anxiety, and they show him part of why he's worried about confronting Ozai is he's got, anxiety about it, and he has super stressful dreams that are actually very hilarious because it's a kid, but it's still anxiety dreams. And so I think that they show kids like, look, this is what's going on for you. This is a normal thing. Even the Avatar has a bad dream about Fire Lord Ozai making him do an algebra test, so it's like, I just think what a message to show kids that. And then Aang isn't sleeping. He refuses to sleep because he doesn't want to have the bad dreams, So it's just really interesting. And Katara has to deal with a lot of anger and depression, and they're still grieving the loss of her mother, she and Sokka. So it's very layered for a kid's show. It's really well done. My favorite thing that we didn't get into humor. I'll wait.
No, I mean, it sounds like to me, and I'm wondering, Susie, since you watched this, you were a teen when you first watched it, right? You weren't a kid, but you were a teen. So it, like it's tackling subjects that aren't often addressed in children's media. So did this make you view any subject differently, or make you view yourself differently, or anything like that through watching this when you were a teenager?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. It did. like I said, it did present subjects that were previously like known to me or previously hard to grasp in a way that I could more easily understand them. And it just it showed me how people deal with different things differently. Different things affect each of us differently, how we approach different things differently. And it just gave me, I feel like it gave me a bit more, it helped me gain a little bit more of an understanding of the world around me and a little bit more of an understanding about myself and how I interacted with that world, especially with all like the philosophical side of things.
Mhm.
Because, like it is very kind of what could some could consider to be like kind of heavy subject matter for like a kid show to be kind of going into, especially when it comes to terms like about depression, anxiety, and rage and grief and different healing processes and coping processes. But the good about that is that you're getting all these different viewpoints, so you can see how how all these factors are affected differently by things. And I think it's just I just think it really taught me a lot, like to understand a lot better after I had like watched the show.
Well, and the thing is that even though people may think those emotions are too big for kids to look at, or for even preteens and sometimes even teenagers to look at, when you're a kid, you don't understand those emotions and you could be going through those emotions. So I think it's important to discuss those emotions with kids and to not completely dumb down everything, like was mentioned way earlier, and not to talk down to kids all the time. So I think, even though it may seem like heavy subjects for kids to have for kids to watch or to deal with, uh, kids are already dealing with a lot of that stuff. And especially, I think, even more so now in the world we live in right now, it's got to be very scary to be a kid in the world today. So I think, there might be a lot more, I don't know, because I don't have kids, but there might be a lot more anxiety or a lot more depression or stuff like that associated with a lot of the stuff that goes on in the world. And there are different fears, I think, that kids might have nowadays. And especially when you have technology playing such a big part in the world as well, and social media and everything like that. I think even as a kid, that could potentially affect you as well, and could lead to the depression and stuff like that. So I think it's interesting that they do try and tackle that and address that, and anxiety and all that stuff, and not sleeping and stuff, because that's stuff that some kids do go through. It's not like it's not a thing that kids don't go through. So I think that's pretty good that they do that. So, and I don't know, Tanya, if it helped you see your kids it might sound like a weird question, but see your kids differently, or talk to your kids, or did it bring up any kind of discussions or anything with your kids?
Definitely, yeah, they were very, they I guess having lived with them their whole life, and that I've always tried to talk to them in a way that's age appropriate, but not insulting in terms of what they could understand. Like, of course,
Mhm.
we're not going to bring things up when when it's too much for them, but trying to help them process their feelings, and for us to have a way to talk about, oh, okay, this is what Aang was going through, and then I've got my education and my perspective as an adult, but then we can talk about that. They're very much right there, like they
Mhm.
get it. They can identify with that. And just to kind of come back to your comment, Aaron, about mental health crises, as a nation, we're going through this. Of course, more the calls for crisis centers, the
Mhm.
number of people looking for help and support is way up. In Colorado, it's specifically up for teens, so it really is significant. Colorado has a higher than average, unfortunately, rate of mental health challenges and suicide attempts. frankly, for people in that demographic. And so that, as you can imagine, the pandemic has only exacerbated that for kids. So it really is. I mean, think about what they're going through. As a kid, I didn't have to think about school shootings. I didn't have to think about, bringing a disease home to my
Yeah.
family that might, it just, or not on that level. I was more worried about if I had my period and bled through my white jeans or something, something stupid like that. Not stupid, but
No, I know what you're saying. Yeah, the levels of it. Yeah.
not that you didn't have that. So it's I think it's a really good way to help kids process those emotions, or adults. Like, I was actually going through a really, really difficult time when I watched this show. I've been pretty open about this. I'm a person who struggles with anxiety and depression and obsessive compulsive disorder and other autoimmune system disorders. And often media and some of my beloved products have helped me deal with that, even as a 40 something year old humanoid. And it's just to watch Aang and Katara and even Sokka and people kind of go through this as characters. You're like, oh, that's what's going on with me. And I'm like, I'm an adult, but it helps you to recognize things, because sometimes we can't see what's closest to us, but if we see it somewhere else, we can go, oh, light bulb. That's what's up.
No, I think media is a very, very powerful tool when it comes to that. And that's why, it's very important that depictions and stuff like that are accurate, or as accurate as possible, or respectful. And that's why, I mean, I'm in my 40s too, and media helps me, or can trigger me, or can help me confront things or look at things. I mean, I spoke about it not too long ago, most recently with that movie, A Mouthful of Air. That was like a mirror being like just held right up in my face. And, it was like one of those where it was like, okay, you should look at this. And I wasn't expecting that. And so I think that's what can happen in good media, and the way, I think art, while it's meant to be fun and entertain you, I think really good art can also teach you something, or have you see yourself in a different way, or see yourself in a character, or watch yourself, you know, identify with a character and then watch them go through a struggle and maybe overcome it, or that might help you or might inspire you, or something like that. I think, and there's no shame in that. I don't think. That's the one thing I always like to stress on here. And I think that's a big reason I started this podcast, is I think people kind of laugh at the word fandom, or laugh at the word fans, or laugh at the fact that people get so obsessed, for lack of a better word, or so involved with the media they consume. But the thing is it's important, and it does things, and it can address things. It can help you. It can inspire you. It can lift your spirits. It can, stuff like that. So it's a powerful, powerful tool. And I don't like the fact that people kind of look down on it and shame it in a way, and look at it like it's just kind of like a silly, goofy little thing. Especially the older you get, I think you get that more. You get that backlash more the older you get. So that's why I think it's so interesting with a show like this. Like I said, with so many adults gravitating towards it, I think that's awesome, because I think a lot of people would be surprised by that. I don't know, but oh.
I clicked the wrong button. I'm here. But I want to, I just had a 40-something person moment. But yeah, that's all. So yeah, but what, to your point though, I have a good point. I promise.
I know. Sorry.
It's like my peekaboo.
Yeah. That would have been really cool if you turned it on and you were wearing something different.
Yeah, I'm not that.
The George Clooney mask.
Yes, I don't have my Clooney face. I don't have anything cool. I don't even have cosplay stuff. But okay, so all I was thinking, Erin, but your comments about connecting with media, I realized like we maybe as adults we connect with this because we don't see this kind of representation even in things geared toward adults, where you see characters, yes, we see them going through things, but it tends to be a depressing ending, or it tends to be a BoJack situation where you're like, I don't want to be any of these characters. They're all kind of really, they end up,
Susie's face, sorry. Yeah.
I've
but
never
like you
seen
see,
BoJack, so I don't know what's going on in that universe.
okay, it's not for kids. It is
No, it's
animated.
not for kids.
It is 100% the other. But to see that and to see people go through this and still find companionship and find that you're not alone and be able to become better versions of themselves, we don't always get that in a even media geared toward adults. So that might be why people like me are finding it wonderful,
No, that's a good point. And as someone who's like not in that, that's a good point, because as we talked about in our mental health episode and portrayals of mental illness in media, 99.9% of the time when it comes to that, media gets it wrong. And I think it is because, they want to focus either on glamorizing, sadly, the darkness of it, or they make it too easy peasy kind of thing, or they don't, it's too extreme. So I think that's a really interesting and good point. So I like that. I like that a lot. So yeah. Well, we're going to save humor for last, because I think it'd be best to wrap up on a humor note. So I want to talk about propaganda and imperialism, which I know you brought that up when we were brainstorming stuff for the outline, or when you all were it was incredible. Seriously, I should take screenshots of that, because I was like, okay, maybe people would just give me a couple things, and then it was just like boom, 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 boom. I was like, whoa, that was amazing. So, Susie, how do you think the show deals with that, with the propaganda and imperialism, especially when it's a kids show? That's a heavy, heavy thing.
Yeah. Just really quick. I did feel kind of bad when I was writing stuff in the chat, because I was like, oh, maybe we're bombarding her a little too much with
Well, I kind of edited some of it. That's why I was like, we
Yeah.
may not get to everything. That's why I've kind of, some of these things I'm like, that'll be something we may not get to. But yeah, no, it was fine though. It helped me a lot, because I was like, I don't know. I want to make sure I'm tackling what everybody wants to talk about. So sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, no, but just wanted to mention that really quick. But something that, again, that I think is really interesting in the world of the Last Airbender is, yes, they do talk about the propaganda from the Fire Nation, but something that is also interesting is that there's like a stretch of time when they're in what could be considered kind of like the New York City of the Earth Kingdom. And you also see like the propaganda that's going on in that city as well, and how it affects everyone from all the different social classes, because it's just, oh god, it is so eerie when the gang gets to this city, because so all they've heard throughout the whole time is that Bossing Say is an impenetrable impenetrable city. The Fire Nation hasn't been able to crack it. No one can get in. And they think, oh, this is probably going to be some really idealistic, beautiful place. And they go and visit it. They get there, and they're like, oh, hey, we're the Avatar and friends. And they meet this woman, and she's just like, hi, welcome to Ba Sing Se. Nothing is going on outside the walls of Ba Sing Se. Everything is okay. And you're immediately like
That's super
uncomfortable.
creepy.
You're immediately uncomfortable in the presence of this woman and everyone else, because you're just like, oh, this is no thank you. And they ask about the war going on, and they tell them there's no war outside of Ba Sing Se. And it's just like, what is going on? And I'll admit, as a viewer, even I started to feel a little bit brainwashed by this. weird propaganda because I was like, okay, how long have we been in this town? And also, is there really even an outer conflict? Is there even a war outside of Bossing City? What are they doing? No. And then they find out, like, the whole seedy underbelly of the city, how, like, so Bossing Say has the king, and he's basically just like a figurehead, and everything is run by like lower level like politicians basically, and they control the flow of information into Bossing Say. They control what the people get to know of the world outside of Bossing Say, and they get to control that propaganda and how they deal with like dissenting opinions. And you're just like, oh my god! Like even in places that, and it goes to show like even in places that seem really like idyllic and just just nothing's wrong here. Always look beyond the surface because something could be real funky.
Yeah, it's like a really well done freaky version of Stepford Wives
Yeah.
meets Clockwork Orange, but for children.
Wow.
Yeah.
Clockwork Orange for children.
Nickelodeon, the same channel that brought you SpongeBob.
Yeah. Yeah. After you watch this, you're gonna want to also consume what SpongeBob viewers consume and then watch SpongeBob, but that might make you more paranoid. So, no, I'm just like, yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, Susie. And like, there's a character who is sort of this rebel kind of Do you remember Jet?
Yes, Jet.
R.I.P. Jet, pours one out, right? And he dies. Like he does though. He's got like like he has like a group too, and he's sort of a Robin Hood kind of character, and they're just like orphans and they hang out in the trees and they're sort of portrayed in a light way, and then he gets caught by the thought police. I don't know what to call them, the propaganda people, and he gets brainwashed into
I'd say thought police because
Yeah.
basically what goes into their brainwashing shtick is they put you in the middle of a room with a lantern on a track, and they just spin this lantern around and around while someone reads from a thing that says, "There is no war outside of Bossing Say. There is no conflict outside of Bossing Say. You are safe in Bossing Say."
Gosh, that's like super creepy.
It is so unnerving, and you're just like, I think I need like a shower and maybe a blanket and some cookies because I'm not doing okay with this.
It's very dystopian too. It's kind of
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, that's
Definitely.
very
Because
that's
also like
creepy.
part of the art, part of like what's going on in this town is that Aang is looking for his water buffalo, which is like the size of 3 houses. And he can't find it, and he keeps putting up lost posters, and then they're just gone. Because, like, again, he's brainwashed into like, there's nothing going on here. And the king, meanwhile, is just playing with what is basically a teddy bear.
Yeah, and I
Wow.
don't remember what their like the woman's name
I
that
think they
you
just give them all the same name.
they did all
Like,
have the same. No, I
yeah,
can't remember the
like,
name.
yeah, like I don't know what the name was.
But at some point it's very much like they're trying to control what Avatar and team have access to, so they're not allowed to go certain places. They really want them to stay and only see, the presentation of their city and their kingdom that they want to control, right? So it's censorship. And then at some point the woman messes up, like the guide woman, and she's replaced. She's like recast.
Yeah.
Not recast, but like replaced by another character performing the same role. And the team's like, what happened to what's her face? And they're like, in the new version of what's her face is like, I don't know what you mean. I'm what's her face. I've always been what's her face.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
And this is a
They
kid.
kind of like, yeah, they kind of like bewitch you. You know how like in Bewitch they replace Darren?
Oh
and
yes, yes.
not
Yeah.
to notice. That's what they do with her, and you're just like, wait a second.
But it's a plot point. But it's more of a plot point. They're like, because that's when the Avatar people are like, This is not something's going on. Something's hinky here,
Yeah, and then there's
Wow.
just like a room full of these women that you're then shown, and they're just all standing there like here. Again, for kids.
Stepford wives, like you said, Tanya. That's what it sounds like. Stepford wives. Yeah.
Which I've
Yeah.
never seen, but I have had
Oh, you
enough
haven't?
cultural references to understand that
You haven't
that's
seen any of
appropriate.
the versions of Stepford
No.
wives? Well,
I was
yes, you
like,
have. You've
mm-mm.
seen Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Right, but I haven't seen like the
Yeah.
no, because I may be back in the day, but I think I get really freaked out, as you know. So I was like, Stephen King, I read a Stephen King book. I didn't sleep for like 3 days, and my mom was like, "Yeah, no more of that for you. That's enough."
Wow. Wow. Well, that's, I mean, it's pretty incredible to me just listening to this and hearing all of this for like a kid's show. I mean, when I was a kid, I watched a lot of dark stuff because I started watching horror when I was really young. But this, I mean, I'm not saying this show is dark, because it doesn't seem like it is, because I don't think Tanya would be watching it if it was.
Well,
Susie likes
thanks.
this dark
No,
stuff.
I do
No,
love
you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I do love Deadwood, which is so funny. People are like, "How can you be like Avatar and blah blah blah?" And then you're like, "My favorite show is Deadwood." Anyway, but
Which we'll have to
I
do
am
an
a
episode on.
complicated human.
Yes, we are all complicated. We'll have to do an episode on Deadwood at some point. It's on my yeah. It's on my 100-page list of shows. So I was like, okay, I'm asking everybody for feedback what we should put on here. I'm like, Erin, why are you doing that? You already have like hundreds of them on there that people have given you. Anyway, well, what I want to wrap up with, because I wanted to end on a happy note, unless were you about to add, did you need to add
No,
something?
sorry. I remembered
go
her name. It was Judy.
Oh, it was
All these
Judy.
women are named Judy, but it's like spelled out like
Judy,
Joodee, I think.
Oh,
She's like,
hey, Sasha.
Yeah. Hi, Sasha.
I'm like, finally, one of our viewers. We've had viewers come in and out, and not a single person has said anything. So hi. It's been the quietest live stream we've ever done. So, yeah. Well, then too bad Judy wasn't on here.
Right. We could have done that whole bit. We could have been like, "Wait, where's Judy?" And we could have pretended like we didn't recognize her, and Tanya could have done random freaky comedy. But oh well, whatever. She had stuff to do or other things happening in the world, and it's like, I don't know what your problem is, Judy, but
quote
okay.
unquote. Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, she might have actually been watching at some point. She was like, I'm gonna try and sneak off and just watch a little bit. But so I don't know. But I want to wrap up with humor, just because I want to wrap up with something lighter, because this has been heavy on and off. So this is a kids show and there is humor in it, which I could tell. I mean, like my cabbages, isn't that like, that's an ongoing joke, right? That's what I gathered from the stuff I've watched.
It's basically like a cabbage vendor that the gang comes across repeatedly. I think especially more in season 2. And this poor man, he's just trying to make a living to sell his cabbages, and they keep getting destroyed. And what's funny is that they continue this joke in Legend of Korra too. But instead, this man has like built a business conglomerate, and he gets imprisoned for like embezzling or something. And he goes, "My cabbage enterprise." But it's like the humor in this show is also like top notch. It's just one of my favorite like humorous sequences is cactus juice. It'll quench you. It's the quenchiest. Like one of them just like so could just like drinks juice out of a cactus, and apparently it's equivalent to shrooms because he just hallucinates like all.
It's a kids show. It's a kids show.
Yeah, again,
we mentioned Clockwork Orange.
It's a kid show, but from an adult perspective, you're like, did this guy take shrooms or something? Because he's just is seeing the worlds above and beyond his plane of existence, and he's just like, cactus juice.
Well, maybe cactus juice does that. No, I don't.
I don't know. No, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, dang, what kind of cactus juice is this?
Yeah, I thought it was like
Tanya.
peyote. But anyway, not
It
that
could
I've
have
done
been.
that, but I
That
thought
might
it was
have
like,
been.
okay. But yeah, the comedy is just amazing. There's, of course, just funny jokes. Sokka is comedic relief a lot. And he's very funny. There's slapsticky stuff, but I love as I said, the anxiety dream. Aang has anxiety dreams about fighting Fire Lord Ozai, and he repeatedly has this dream where, he has to take an algebra test, or he shows up and then he's like, I'm ready to fight you, Fire Lord Ozai. And Fire Lord Ozai says, no, you're not wearing any pants. Like that common dream that you
Yeah.
have as a kid. And finally, Aang gets some sleep. And in his dream, he's able to have efficacy and he's ready to fight Fire Lord Ozai. And Fire Lord Ozai pulls that line on him, you're not wearing any pants. And Aang goes, no, Fire Lord Ozai, you're not wearing any pants. And I say that all the time. I don't know why. It cracks me up.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
you're not wearing any
It's
pants.
hilarious.
And then
He Uno reversed him.
Mhm,
Like,
yes.
ah!
Yep, exactly. And then he's
Uno
able to
reversed
sleep
him.
and like, yep, reverse. You're not wearing any pants. And it just is so funny. I don't know. It's great. I'm trying to remember other stuff, but there's a lot of great. Sokka.
You're.
Oh no!
Oh no! Tanya's
That
been
was
doing so
so
well.
Sokka's first girlfriend is the moon.
Oh my god!
I'm frozen.
Yeah, we can hear now. You're unfrozen. I was just typing out to you. You're frozen, but you're unfrozen now.
Probably making a great face, like. Okay. So Sokka's first girlfriend is the moon, and at some point he's talking to Zuko about it, and he's like, "My girlfriend turned into the moon." And goes, "That's rough, buddy." Cool. It's just freaking well.
You're frozen again. I just wrote now. You're unfrozen. The second I write it, you unfreeze. So, yeah. Well, yeah.
It's the magic touch.
Yeah, that's the magic touch. Is I have to just tell you you're frozen.
Froze and then unfreeze.
Freeze, unfreeze.
I think it's one of also like the funny, like I really like it when there are comedic moments in the show that allow Aang to just be a kid. Like when he gets to like the island where all the Kyoshi warriors are, he's like, yeah, I'm the Avatar. Look at this. Ding! And he just brings out like 6 marbles that he's spinning in the air, like in between his hands, and he's like, ah! And everyone on this island just loses their gosh darn mind over this trick. There's one dude who just starts screaming and crying and foaming at the mouth over this little dumb marble trick. And he's just like, what is this even? I'm sorry. I think it's so funny.
I know. Tanya's frozen with her thumb up. I'm sorry. That's when I was losing it at.
She was like, I gotta be ready.
I'm sorry.
And her mic is off too.
Thumbs up. I'm sorry. Oh my god, that's hilarious. I'm taking a screenshot. That's
As we collectively just die.
She's just totally frozen. We might have lost her. I don't know, but
No. Tanya, please go.
she's just like totally. I just did a screenshot because that was too.
Oh my god.
Yeah, we lost her.
Oh, we lost her. No.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I don't know if Tanya will come back.
Oh.
Oh my god. I'm sorry, but that was just. I was trying so hard to listen, but I'm like, love you too, Sasha. I was trying so hard to just listen, but I was like,
Oh my god, my cheeks hurt so much.
oh my god, that was hilarious. No.
Oh my god. I like how she was just like, I'm gonna be prepared just in case.
It was the perfect. It also fit
Oh
with.
my god.
It just. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! So her connection died. So I have a feeling she's not
Okay.
coming back.
No.
That was okay. But we were at the end anyway, so I'll let everybody know where they can find Tanya, or I can just clip it from the BoJack Horseman episode. I'll try and edit that in where you can find Tanya. But in case we don't get Tanya again, I'll let you know where you can find her. But I'll have I need a second here. Okay. Yeah, Tanya said to say goodbye to her.
Okay.
I'm just gonna tell her. No worries. You left us with the perfect screenshot.
Yeah. Tanya's computer had cactus juice, everyone. That's what happened.
Yes, yes. So anyway, so we'll go ahead and close out then. That was perfect though that it happened towards the end. I'm glad it didn't happen at the beginning because that would have sucked. Just for her and for us too, because we would have missed her as well. So Susie, if you want to tell everybody where they can find you.
Yes, all you lovely humans and peeps and pipples can find me on Instagram and on Twitter at SusieQS_SC, I think is the deal. Hold on, I'm like double checking because my brain is
It is.
a
It's
little bit
underscore
wibbly.
SC
Yep.
on Twitter because I'm looking
Yeah,
right now because I want to make
yeah,
sure I get Tanya's correct. So yes.
yeah. Underscore SC for Twitter, and then there's an additional underscore for Instagram. And then for TikTok, just find me through the It's a Fandom thing one on there. 'Cause I don't know. I think it's Zany SC.
It's something like
think,
that.
yeah, I think it's that. And my dog's Instagram is also at Benny_Pelucita. And listen, if you ever need something to cheer up, just go watch that silly little fluff ball because he is the cutest, darn tootinest little poof.
We should do an episode. It would not be interesting at all, probably. I'm like, we should do an episode with all the dogs.
Oh my god, can I put like him in my place and just like
Yeah.
like he's doing the podcast himself?
And I'll put Fergie here, and it will not go well at all. This will it'll be like, what are you doing? And then Sasha can have and Dewey come on, and
Yeah, we're just gonna.
that would not be an interesting.
Angela can have her cats on.
Yes, yes. Her
Yeah.
cats have been on too. They've made
Yeah.
appearances on
This
the
time they'll
podcast.
dominate like completely by themselves.
Yes, yes. And all the dogs will be looking and being like barking at each other and
Like, and then we just add little subtitles along the bottom like, "You're muted. Press the unmute button."
See, we have fun on these. So Tanya can be found on Twitter at it's always keep nerd fighting, but the handle is at AKN. Those are all capitalized. ERD fighting. The F is capitalized. So it's AK nerd fighting is where you can find her. I'm sorry, I'm really messing this up. You can look for on our Twitter. I'm always following these people. So, and the A and the K and the N and the F are capitalized in AK nerd fighting. So Tanya says she enjoyed this tremendously. I'm just speaking for her. She didn't actually say that. She said she loves this show a lot. It means the world to her. See, she's not here to love you, Tanya. I'm gonna have to send that screenshot to the private chat there because that was perfect. That was so amazing. That's definitely going to be a TikTok. They're freezing like that. Okay, well, and this is Erin. You can follow me on Twitter at eAprilBeauty. The E and the A and the B are capitalized. Be sure to like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/It's a Fandom Thing Pod. On Twitter at Fandom Thing Pod. No, it's in that one. On Instagram at It's a Fandom Thing Pod. On TikTok at It's a Fandom Thing Pod. If you have any feedback, show notes, if you'd like to be a potential guest on the show, feel free to reach out to us at It's a Fandom Thing Pod at gmail.com. And just a couple of things. Next week, we have a very interesting mix we're doing next week. We are first doing Dexter. So we are going to be talking about the first 5 episodes. If you know anything about us lately, that's been our show that we've been live tweeting on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Then we do a live stream at 8:15 Mountain Standard Time. So we are doing those still, but we wanted to do an in-depth special podcast episode talking about the first 5 episodes. So we'll just be covering half of the season. It's going to be Carla, Jen from My Streaming Bubble, and then Megan is going to be on that one. And Megan is the only one who hasn't been doing our live tweets or live streams. So that'll be interesting. As you know, if you've watched the live streams, I was very up on Dexter. And then this past episode, it kind of broke my heart a little bit. We'll see if my heart gets mended. But it's still 100 times better than some other things that we have live tweeted. So no matter what, it'll never be alien babies. Alien babies and all that stuff. But anyway, so next week we're going to be covering Dexter, like I said, and then we're going to be covering Regency era books and movies. So 2 polar opposite things. But that'll be fun. And Susie's on that one, Meg's on that one, and Rebecca, who hasn't been on an episode in quite a while. So I'm glad to have her back. So, and I know they're all excited. This is another thing that I've mentioned before. This is one of not my favorite genres, but I know it's a lot of our listeners. So I want to strive to cover things that may not even be in my wheelhouse, because then I learn things, maybe grow to appreciate things a little bit more. But it should be a fun, I think, kind of loose conversation. We'll just be talking about what everybody's favorites are. And maybe even if we wanted to talk about least favorites, but we'll try and keep it on the bright side. And pretty soon we are going to do a live stream that'll just be a live stream of kind of like an end of the year wrap up. It won't be our best of, because we do have an episode that we're going to be doing, but it'll be like our favorites, from the past year. But it'll be kind of like a best of the podcast, just a fun little thing, best of live streams, clips, stuff like that. Me probably getting emotional or whatever. I don't know. Because well, we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary here on December 17th. So I will be getting emotional. Fair warning to all of my panelists and all the viewers out there. They're like, oh my gosh, here goes Aaron again. But I feel like we've kind of gone off the rails here for a second here. I just keep picturing Tanya with the I just wish I could I'm just going to take that with me everywhere. Just the thumbs up.
Turn it into perfect. A Wile E. Coyote sign, just like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, so keep a lookout for those 2 episodes next week. And once again, join us for our live tweets and live streams of Dexter every Thursday, starting at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for the rest of the show. And if there's any show or movie that you want us to do live tweets of, and then our live reactions afterwards, please let me know. We are supposed to do a movie review, and we are supposed to do House of Gucci, but I don't know if this is going to happen, to be quite frank, just because I haven't got to see it. Unless Susie and I go sometime this week, then we might do it. But if we don't do that one, we'll do another one. But please feel free to send us feedback of ones you want. I'll have polls soon on Twitter of what we should live tweet next, because I'm not sure what we're going to do next. And I enjoy doing those, so I want to keep them going. So, if you have any feedback, anything you'd like us to do, even if it's something that we don't necessarily like, even hate tweeting and hate live streaming is fun. So feel free to do that too if you want us to, and then coming in January, sorry, I'm giving a lot of information here. I'll probably cut a lot of this maybe from the podcast episode, but coming in January, Christian effing Bale month is coming. I am so flippin' excited. I can't. I'm so glad he became our unofficial mascot, which was a total fluke accident that all came about during an episode that had nothing to do with him. So it's amazing to me that he is our mascot, our unofficial mascot. I just think it's hilarious. So I'm glad that we're celebrating because I think he's a great actor too. So I think it'll be fun. We're going to talk about a bunch of his movies. And so keep an ear out for that. Susie, you're on the Batman one, right?
Yeah.
Dark Knight one, the Dark Knight one.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that. We have convinced Sasha. Carla's going to be on all of these, by the way, because Carla has to. I mean, Carla. You know, she does that spot on Christian effing Bale impersonation, so she has to be on them. But we have convinced, I think, Sasha to come on. She left, so I can't ask her right now, but I think we've convinced her to come on the live stream as a certain character. I'm not going to say who, but on the Dark Knight live stream. So that should be a lot of fun. So we've got a lot of good stuff coming your way, man. A lot of loveliness. So until next time, remember, it's a fandom thing. Black Lives Matter and stop Asian hate. And I have to remember we're live. So goodbye.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for watching In and Out, people who did. Bye.